Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Castillo. I'm a librarian at Beatley Central Library here in lovely Alexandria, Virginia. And welcome to tonight's edition of Distancing Cinema. We are here with Hayden Wheel, director, writer, mastermind of tonight's film, Love and Time Travel. And so I will hand the floor over to our own David Lawton from Oddball Cinema, and we'll jump right into the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And by the way, I am in Arlington, Virginia, but Arlingtonians and Alexandrians get along just fine. I picked the movie. I've gotten, after doing a few of these sessions, I've gotten into a rhythm where I like to begin by telling people that I pick the movie. I screen a lot of movies. I watch about 50 movies a month in completion. And there's at least 20 more every month that I say after the first 5 to 10 minutes, this isn't going to make it, and I toss them out. When I watch them all the way through, quite often I send little mini reviews to my fellow organizers. We have 3 active organizers, and they would have liked to be here, but they work and they have other things to do. I'm retired, so I can watch movies all day. So why did I pick your movie? I'm a big fan of the surreal. So any movie based on forces beyond our understanding is always going to draw my attention. Now, I really like the structure of the movie. For a while, it looks like a medieval morality play. Imagine a pilgrim given a series of choices along some pilgrimage, and a guardian angel always points to the correct one. But in this case, Dan is his own guardian angel. On top of that, there are these 2 older, excuse me, I don't talk much during the day, living alone, and my voice sometimes just won't get started. There are 2 older characters, Richard and Eve, who fulfill the role of sages or oracles who can give him worldly advice. But as the story progressed, hang on a second, let me see if I can fix this. Excuse me. As the story progressed, it felt more like a role-playing game. I've actually written that sort of thing, in which the player meets characters who give him clues to A, complete his main quest, and B, complete a few side quests along the way. Dan's agreeing to drive Sophia to Castle Point, leading to his finding the fishing charter, is a coincidence straight out of an online game, as is they're discovering the locket while they're walking around there. So I've written both story and code for online game, and it just sounded like something that that I might have written only in LPC rather than plain English. I take it Simeon could not join us tonight.
That's right. He is an animation supervisor at Weta Digital, so he is swamped with many upcoming projects.
Oh, by the way, what time is it locally?
It is 11 o'clock in the morning on Friday, so I'm in the future.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to make a remark about the cinematography, since I noticed that he was listed as a cinematographer for the film. First, I love the scenery. And second, I also appreciated a few little camera tricks. For example, when Dan reaches the fork in the road after receiving his message, turn right, and he starts down the left side, the camera is tilted so that the surface of the world is leaning to the left. But then he changes his mind, you change your mind, and he goes to the right, and then everything shifts as if his change of mind is affecting the entire state of the universe. I just think that was really telling. Anything you want to respond to in what I've said before I continue on?
I'm just so blown away that people even watch the film. let alone watch the whole way through. There's such a glut of content out there. So the fact that you've actually read into so many of the things that happen in the film and the cinematography is really touching, to be honest.
Well, they don't call us oddball cinema for nothing. You know, you can go to the local multiplex and see superheroes battling supervillains, robots crashing against each other, cars crashing, romantic comedies. I don't do that. I told you I've got about 1,500 films. Almost all of them are odd in some way. I have a few major classics. You know, I have Lawrence of Arabia. I have The Wizard of Oz, although I have to say The Wizard of Oz, when it was first released, was a very oddball film. And the critics and audiences did not like it for a long time. Eventually they came around. They'll come around to you too. So Dan, excuse me, not Dan, Hayden. Get a little confused there. You wrote it, you directed it, and you were the main character. What inspired this story?
We had made a short film, Simon and I. So his name's spelled Simeon, but it's pronounced Simon.
Oh, that's a New Zealand thing, I take it.
Yeah, must be. Australian, I think. And yeah, we were kind of just bored one Saturday and we wanted to go and shoot something. So we filmed a 5-minute short film together with a friend of mine. And we had so much fun doing it. And it was so easy. Like, all we needed was a camera. We just used natural light. And it was just two people talking to each other. But it was a lot of fun. And the end product was pretty good. And people liked it and responded to it. And a friend of mine said, you should just make a feature like that. Just people talking to each other. And I thought, yeah, it's like my favorite films, like the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise and Sunset and Before Midnight, the Richard Linklater films, and all the Kevin Smith films of the early days, like Clerks and Mallrats. Like they were all my favorite films when I was a teenager growing up and getting inspired. So I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. I wonder if I could just write, 90, 100-page script, all based on actors that I knew that I could work with, write scenes that I knew we could shoot. And so we started making the film and we shot it over weekends for 3.5 months with everybody worked for free. And we didn't have a lighting team or a grip team or a sound team. 100% of the sound was just done with lapel mics. And a lot of it had to be re-recorded because of how bad the quality was. So a lot of the time on set, it was myself and Simon and whatever actor was there. And the story was just born out of that. It was like, what are some interesting, what would hold my attention for 90 minutes? That's just people talking. And I thought there's got to be something different there. Nothing huge and flashy with lots of CG. I can't have robots or superheroes or anything. And then a lot of it came down to, I enjoy acting and I like having the attention on myself, but it was more that, like, where else are we going to find someone to jump in the water at 2 a.m? Where are we going to find somebody to, like, get up on a Saturday and Sunday at silly hours and work for no money? And so it did just become a necessity. Like, well, I'm very happy to do it and I would love to. And so that the story was kind of born out of circumstance. It wasn't like an idea that I'd been working on for a very long time. It was more like, what's a vehicle to explore the themes and the relationships that were exciting me at the time? Stuff like guilt and, like finding yourself lonely, not by choice. And, how do you actually start meeting people? It's really hard to just start making friends, especially people that are different to you, like older or younger or from different backgrounds. So that's where the whole time travel aspect came in.
I wonder, when you were writing this script, did you have to, like, graph all the relationships between the characters? Because it really does sort of enclose upon itself. All these characters and of course, across time, you have all these temporal and spatial relationships between the characters. And it all kind of wraps up into, a 4-dimensional object.
Yeah. In New Zealand, everybody knows each other anyway. So chances are, if you meet someone at a bus stop, you could talk for 10 minutes and then find somebody that knows somebody that, we're connected. They say 6 degrees of separation, but in New Zealand we have a thing that's just called 2 degrees, and it's just that small. So that was kind of always got to be there because that's our reality. And then also it helps to have, instead of having 50 characters, it's nice to just have 8 that all kind of connect with each other's stories. And I really like it in films when there's a circularity and there is like nice foreshadowing and good payoffs. And so I kind of thought, like, how can we get everybody there in the end? How can we get all the characters to like turn up at the same place at the same time for the big climax? And like, it's easy enough to write that, but then getting 6 actors in one place at one time is impossible. So many of those shots in the end, we've got like Richard and Zach over here, and we've got like Summer's dad and Dan over here. They were all shot at different days, different times. All the close-ups of Zach on the pier were shot 6 months later while I was over in Berlin, and Simon just had to run out on the lunch break and get it with the actor. Like, we were really strapped for time.
Well, I found your performance quite convincing. And I have to wonder, because you wrote the story, so you know everything, because you made it up, was it difficult to come up with convincing surprised reactions when you encountered something? Because, see, I don't really know anything about acting, but you would walk up to your mirror and see a message scrawled on it. And of course, I can't act. I can only be sort of cartoonish. But you look like you were genuinely surprised.
Oh, well, that's good. I've just relied on Simon to tell me whenever I did anything unrealistic or anything that was terrible. There was a lot of terrible acting, but I just didn't put that in the movie.
The world is full of terrible acting. But I told you, 20 movies a month get shoved down the chute. You don't want to know. The thing is, I've gotten pretty good at getting hints from the advertising and from the reviews on, say, IMDb. I know that the first 100 reviews usually are submitted by the cast and crew. So,
is that right?
Oh yes, you'll see over the course of time, a movie goes on IMDb, and the first 20 to 50 reviews are 9s and 10s, and then real people start coming along. I'd give it a 2.
Yeah, great.
So when you see that cliff,
I never thought about doing that.
When you see that cliff, this is a bad one. Well,
Yeah,
I want to dig into the story a little bit. Do you have a theory about why Dan experiences cronesthesia?
No, I have no theory.
Oh, this isn't quantum mechanics or relativity.
No, I think it's like, in Back to the Future, I guess it happens to Marty McFly because he's friends with Dr. Emmett Brown. And so that's kind of his catalyst. I think there's just something appealing about the idea that nature or God or something would intervene if there was an opportunity to make 10 people's lives better. So I think maybe that's the concept behind it. I think it's nice to imagine that this phenomenon would happen to 1,000 people around the world at the same time, and that they can all go and have their own whole film about their experience of the 5 days of getting these notes.
Probably 1,000 other people are experiencing their Groundhog Days too.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Right. So yeah, let's go with that. It's happening all over the world, but no one else made a film about it yet.
So I was just curious because, of course, Dan falls in the water near the end of the movie. At that point, he is near death, but of course rescued. And in some movies, in fact, a lot of the movies that I watch, a near-death experience alters your relationship with the universe. You can speak with the dead or see the future or levitate objects.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go with that.
Okay. Okay.
No,
All right.
you know what it is. You know what it is. When it was originally written, it's when he hits his head halfway through the film,
Oh,
and that serves as that's kind of the midpoint. So like that's when the notes start repeating. So that's kind of, so he hits his head in the middle of the film, and that is paired up with him hitting his head at the end of the film. I don't know if you remember, like they both flow into the same moment, and he's splitting himself between these. He's jumping back and forth between 5 days.
so the entire movie could be a hallucination in coma.
Absolutely, yep, absolutely could be.
I get a little wacky sometimes.
Yeah, it's Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
I used to teach English a long time ago, and so I'm
Yeah.
very interested in the way things are written.
Mm.
And from this movie, I get the impression that all the significant male characters are bound by some sorts of quirks. You know, Dan, he goes up and tries to talk to somebody and doesn't know what to say. Richard, he's on this quest to find Genevieve, but he won't complete the quest. But all the female characters are wise and give the men good guidance. Did you write the story this way on purpose, or did it just happen?
I think that's just embarrassing that, it just happened. I think maybe that's my default, is that women tend to be a little bit more emotionally switched on. And especially what we have here in New Zealand is there's this like a New Zealand alpha issue that we have with how we raise our men in New Zealand. So we've got like a really popular rugby team called the All Blacks, and they do really well. And that has somehow become the pinnacle of manliness, is to be like really big, really tough, really aggressive, and really competitive. And we've got one of this is really suddenly taking a dark turn, but we've got one of the highest youth male suicides in the world. I think the highest in the developed world. And a lot of people think it's because of the pressure that is put on young men in New Zealand to live up to these unrealistic expectations. And you do see it, like we've got a lot of absent fathers and a lot of domestic violence and things like that. And it does tend to create men in their 20s are so far behind women in their 20s in New Zealand. They just have there does seem to be a disparity with maturity. So I think it might just be that was our norm at the time that I wrote the film, and maybe it was just feeding in.
Yeah, that's the environment. You're going to write what you know. Yeah,
I think so. I think environment just says a lot about it. But also it could have just been me, and maybe it's just my own thinking. Maybe just felt
maybe your rebellion against the macho ideal.
Yeah, totally. Well, I guess like Summer's dad in the film, he's this huge, like very tough guy, and we make all these assumptions about him, like he looks a certain way, so we assume that he's either dangerous or somebody to be afraid of. And like I guess there are themes like that in it, that you should probably take some time to talk to people a little bit more instead of just assuming things.
Okay, thank you. Moving on from there. I mentioned this before, but when Dan encounters somebody, he quite often wants to have a conversation, but he doesn't know where to start. Is this something you've personally experienced in your life?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think a lot of we're so concerned with our own image all the time, or how we're coming across, that we don't think about the fact the other person that you're talking to is going through the exact same thing. And that's definitely like a personal thing. And it's hard to get past that, I think.
See, I somehow seem to have been born without that inhibition. You notice I'll say anything to anybody.
Great.
That's
amazing.
I'm big enough that it usually doesn't get me into trouble. I spent a lot of time in Russia, which can be a very rough place. And I'm 6'5", that's nearly 2 meters, and 250 pounds. I guess that's around 130 kilograms. And when I would walk into one of these marketplaces that's full of pickpockets, they'd all just swarm away. Like one of those demonstrations you see of surface tension. You put a bit of soap and water and all the debris on the top just scatters away. So my friends in Russia like to go to the market with me, because if I was standing next to them, no pickpocket would be within 50 feet.
That's amazing.
Okay, I'm gonna get into a few little trivial bits, and then I'll see if anyone else has a question to ask. When Richard is talking about meeting Genevieve when they're both young, he said her phone number was 47. Now, was that a joke, or was it actually possible in New Zealand that sometime during Richard's life, a person would have a 2-digit telephone number?
Yes, that's very, very possible. Like even now, I think we only have 7 numbers or something for home phone lines. Oh, that's normal, isn't it? How many do you have in this place?
Well, we have 7 locally, but we almost always dial a 3-digit area code now, because there's no difference between local calls and long distance anymore. You get your cell phone, you've got nationwide calling. So we almost always put the full 10 digits, including the 3-digit area code.
Oh, okay, great. Well, yeah, so no, we don't have area codes, I guess, because we're so small.
You're all one area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but it, oh no, I think we do have area codes. Oh my gosh. I mean, like, I'm forgetting what phone lines are like, because we've all been living with cell phones for the last 15, 20 years. How long has it been? Yeah, 20 years. But no, yeah, that's definitely what it was. Like 50 years ago, I think there was not many phone numbers.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let me just make a couple trivial comments now. The rapid cuts in the scene where Dan's preparing coffee early in the film, they've reminded me of the rapid cuts in Requiem for a Dream, where addicts are preparing their fixes and then taking them. I mean, there's a parallel, and I don't drink coffee myself, so I immediately thought, oh yeah, coffee addict. I take it you've seen Requiem for a Dream?
Yeah, I love it.
When the characters are getting ready to get their fix, it's this cut.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I know. It's a horrendous feeling, that what that film gives you. But you know, I love that stuff, and I mean, I love all like Edgar Wright's films, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, and all that quick cutting stuff, and old Tony Scott films used to do it a lot. And we kind of, I mean, we were under so much pressure shooting in that cafe because they refused to turn the music off, and they still wanted to serve customers while we were filming. So like, I mean, I didn't really clarify it with the manager of the cafe before we filmed there. Originally, there were so many scenes set in that cafe. But after we were filming there for 1 hour, I think 2 scenes, we were like, we're going to get out of here. This is like, there's just no way we can shoot here. So that was the beauty of filming in weekends. We were able to just rewrite, and then all the rest of the scenes we just put in different places, different locations.
There was a movie we had a session like this for a couple of months ago, Raising Buchanan. And the director said, you know, we got permission to shoot in this, I forget if it was a restaurant or a retail store, but while they're shooting, the owner comes up, hey, you know, you guys want to, you know, shoot over here later, or you want to, we're in the middle of the shoot.
Yeah. Oh man, it's wild. And like filming outside, we didn't have like, you know, we couldn't shut down roads, or we didn't even have cones to put up or anything. We didn't even have filming signs. So the amount of takes that were ruined by people beeping their horn and waving, or, you know, like trying to get in the background, we had like no crowd control. So it was, I mean, the people get excited when they see a camera. It's pretty exciting.
You know, one of my favorite movies of all time is called Angel A. That's spelled Angel-A. It's by Luc Besson. Now, you've heard of his more famous films like The Fifth Element and La Femme Nikita. I think this is his best ever, but I never meet anyone who's seen it unless I've shown it to them. And he wanted to shoot in Paris. Talk about people getting in your way. What he did is he only needed a couple of characters. He put the entire film and sound crew and the characters in a van. They drive around Paris early in the morning before everybody got up, find some area where they could shoot. Everybody would pile out, shoot the scene, pile back in, and run off before the police could stop them. So no permits. It's completely guerrilla filmmaking.
I love that. That's so cool.
So if you can find a copy of that film, you would love it. I mean, I show this movie. I have a supply of them.
Oh, really? That you just leaned out?
I did. Oh, I give them away.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm going to write it down now then, so I have it.
I gave one to Beatley Library so they can lend it to people. And I wanted to do the same for my central library here in Arlington. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, thank you.
Is that right?
So I'm a little bit vexed and perplexed by that. But as revenge, I just applied for a job with Arlington Central Library so I can go and do something about this. When I get committed to do something, I will do what it takes.
Good man.
Even join their workforce.
And I have just one last question, and then I'll see if anybody else has any questions. Is there some significance to Dan's always wearing that same pink shirt when he's out running?
There's no significance to it. I just really like the color of pink and purple. That's why the sky is always pink and purple. And we tried to make it serve as a visual signifier. This is Dan's new life now. Because of wiping off that red writing and accidentally putting it in the washing machine with his white shirt, this is the beginning of Dan having a more colorful life.
Okay, so there is a significance. How about that?
Yeah.
All right, that's really all I have at the moment.
Great.
Andrea or Angela, our A team today.
And I did include the Angel A listing in our catalog should you choose to accept the mission of watching it. I think, we touched earlier on Americans not knowing much about New Zealand. And so I really loved the scenery and like the cityscapes and all of that. So I guess I would just like to know a little bit more about these locations where you filmed the movie.
We made the whole thing in Wellington, which is where I lived at the time. And it's where we shot Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and a whole lot of big films filmed down there now. And I hadn't really seen any locations used in any local films, but I would go for runs around Wellington all the time and think, this is a nice view and that's a nice arrangement of trees. So when we were planning the film, we were like, well, where can we shoot for free? It was always going to be these outdoor locations. And I'm not a big fan of films that are like two people talking in a room. I always like it when you kind of get out and you can experience some of the place. So it was just about where can we film for free and like what looks okay or interesting or like a nice place to be. And then we just risked it with the weather and it kind of worked out. We got rained out a lot. Wellington's incredibly windy. So it was always a gamble. Yeah.
What about the scene where the two main characters they're drinking beers like on the other side of the balcony, and there's this beautiful cliff thing, and I'm a little bit afraid of heights, so I was like, oh, that makes me nervous, but this view is amazing. If I were I would probably do the same.
Yeah, I think I really like it's so nice to think about these things. I don't think that's there anymore. So it's like a lookout at the top of Mount Victoria, which is I don't know the significance of the place, but it's got like a really nice view of the Wellington Harbour and everything. And yeah, like we were filming that, and there was the girl that plays Summer, who was I think 10 or 11 at the time. She was like running around doing cartwheels, and she was like all hyped up on sugar or something, because we were going to film a scene with her afterwards. and yeah, like that cliff doesn't go down very far. We were able to put the tripod there and like get the camera to get the two shot of the characters sitting there. But it was like it's so fun. I love looking back at filming that, because it was just like 4 of us hanging out up the top of a mountain, filming and drinking beers and like. And just playing with some stuff and playing with dialogue and thinking about how we're going to film it and all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, it's nice to look back.
That actually makes me think of a couple more questions. Was there a lot of improvisation in the dialogue, or did you write it all out?
Well, I hadn't really written a lot before, so what we would do is I would send the scenes to the actors way ahead of filming. And because we were only filming in the weekend, it meant that we could shoot on the Saturday or Sunday, and then I would edit it together during the week, and we'd be able to watch the scenes and think like, okay, is that a character coming across the way we want? And that shooting style isn't really working, or that lens size doesn't really look that great with that character. So we were able to like learn every week. And during the week as well, I would go and see the actors, and we would do rehearsals and basically just talk the script out. And you notice so fast when an actor stumbles on a line, or when they take a pause, or they something doesn't feel right, and you go, okay, well, what do you want to say instead? Like the purpose of the line is this is the intention. So how else can we say that? Maybe you say this, or do you need my character to give you a provocation before you feel like you need to say that line? So like we got to really kind of improvise while we were rehearsing a lot and just rewrite as we went. And I don't know how, I think that's probably common practice for majority of films if they have the money to be able to have that development process at the beginning. But you don't see that a lot on New Zealand television and in New Zealand films. They really, they feel not stagnant. What's the word? Like they feel stilted. A lot of the dialogue feels forced, and like the actors aren't embodying the characters, or they don't feel relaxed, or they don't feel believable.
They sound like they're reading.
Yeah, they feel like they're reading. But like what we aim to do is just to make all that dialogue just feel completely effortless, completely natural and normal. And it was a really fun process.
Another question, and I think this is the last one I can think of. I have heard from many, many sources that working with child actors is murder. What was your experience?
Well, we were really lucky. We had a kid called Julian Dennison who plays Benny, and he ended up being in Hunt for the Wilder People, which was a New Zealand film that Taika Waititi made, and it's like helped him get the job on Thor, and the guy's just become astronomically successful filmmaker. He's so great and funny. So Julian was the lead character in that film, but we worked with him first, like 6 months, I think, before he filmed Hunt for the Wilder People. And that was because I was doing a tour of primary schools in New Zealand to talk about the importance of reading. And that's just like a voluntary thing that I do every year. I do like a 2-week tour around primary schools and talk about how reading has helped me become a filmmaker and work on all these exciting films. And I get to show pictures of me working on The Hobbit and working with Daniel Radcliffe, who played Harry Potter, and it gets all the kids really excited. And I say, yeah, if you want to learn, to make films and stuff, then you should be reading more. And then we give out books. It's like a really fun thing. And Julian was at one of these schools, and the teacher introduced me to him afterwards and said, Julian really wants to act. Like he's really into acting and filmmaking. So I met him, and he's probably 9 or 10 at the stage. And then so like a year or 2 years later, when we were looking for a kid, a 10-year-old kid or 11-year-old kid, he jumped into my mind, and I thought maybe I'll try and track him down. So I called the school, and they put me in touch with his mum, and we went out to McDonald's, and he agreed to come and do it. I just had to buy him McDonald's, and then he did the film for free. And like, he was an absolute blast. He was really great with his lines. He was super fun and like really easy to have a rapport with. Him and Nova, who plays Summer in the film, like they got on really well. So like their whole scene was improvised, basically. It was just sitting them down and then running through the script and then saying like, oh, actually say this instead, it's funnier. You know, and like trying stuff, and then if the other person laughed, then great, like let's say that instead. And the kids were great. We didn't have a single issue. Yeah, I think we were just maybe really lucky.
I really enjoyed watching them both, and yeah, I think I saw Julian. I was like, I can't remember where I've seen him, but I know I've seen him in a few things.
Mm-hmm. He's in Deadpool 2 and the latest Godzilla versus Kong, I think.
I think that was where I most recently saw him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's like very successful now. It's hilarious. We were like hanging out with him, literally buying him a cheeseburger combo, and he did a job for us.
You knew him back when?
Yeah, totally. And he's the best. Like, I ran into him recently when I was in Wellington. I was finishing off the sound and music for a film that we released last year. And I ran into him, and he was doing ADR for Godzilla versus Kong. And I was finishing another like micro budget film. And it was so funny. He's doing like this Warner Brothers gigantic like showstopper. It was really cool. I'm so proud of him.
Well, when he picks up his Oscar, I'm sure in his speech he will thank you first for giving him a start.
No, he's the best. So I'm so lucky and proud to have worked with him.
Okay, I think that's all I've got. Literally all I've got.
Magic. Well, this has been an absolute blast. I could talk about my own film forever. Thank you so much for,
Oh, I should add one more thing. It's not a question, but I want to thank you for stopping the bedroom scene where you did, because Beatley Library, which hosts this discussion for us, has this thing called community standards. And if it had gone much farther, they wouldn't let me have this film on this program.
Yes, well, I mean, poor Michelle, who plays Sophia, wasn't being paid, so I'm glad it didn't go further either.
Would you be able to talk about your experience working on The Hobbit?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I did the whole 2.5-year shoot as the body double for Martin Freeman, who played Bilbo. And it was the best experience I could have ever wished for when I was growing up and wanting to learn more about films, because I just got a front row seat to watch Sir Peter Jackson directing. Him and Andrew Lesnie, the DOP, would choose shots, and then he'd discuss acting with Martin and Sir Ian and Kate Blanchett, and then he would talk about the lights, and then he would say, I want the score to be doing this at this time. Like, it was a real insight to how a humongous film is made. And it turns out making those really big films are almost exactly the same as making a small film. You just have bigger problems and bigger things to have to figure out. But it was I was 22 at the time, going out to dinner with the actor who I'd admired for years. It really just felt like I was blessed beyond belief. It came out of nowhere. I'm just, I wish everybody got the opportunity to do something like that. And I was just so lucky that I was available and the right size and white and male at that time. Yeah. So it was like, I won the lottery. It was really cool.
They needed a Hobbit, and you were a Hobbit.
I'm exactly one Hobbit tall. Really, it's a good thing, I guess.
Well, I did have a couple of questions. First of all, the movie is really well shot, as David mentioned, and the dialogue is really good and very realistic. So I'm glad you talked a little bit about your process of doing that. And I wanted to ask you some more concrete questions, like specifically about what was your budget for this movie?
Mm-hmm. So we had nothing. Simon owned the camera, and he said that filming stuff is a great excuse for him to like buy another lens, or buy the thing that steadied the camera. I think it was a Movi at that time, or a Ronin. And he shot it, I think it was on the Sony FX. No, oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember what it's called, because we talked about it all the time. But it wasn't on like a crazy expensive camera. It wasn't like a Red camera or anything. It was, those like before those times. And I was working at a cinema at that time, as like making coffee and pouring wine and being paid like $12 an hour New Zealand, which is like $6 US or 7 or something. And I was only doing 32 hours a week. So I was not like able to fund a full film. And that's why we did it so independently. And what we would promise the actors was like, come on board, and if we shoot for more than like 5 hours, then we'll buy you lunch. But everybody dressed themselves. They would send photos of different clothes that they just had in the closet. Or like, I remember the character of Summer's dad, the really tall guy, Shane is his name in real life. The nicest guy ever. We really wanted him to have a leather jacket, just because we wanted him to look like your typical like imposing figure. So he went to a secondhand shop and he was like, hey man, I found one for $18, but like I'll keep looking, I'll try find one for under 10. Like we were really trying to keep the budget as low as possible. And I would always kind of like linger when it came time to pay for lunch. Wherever we went, we'd just go to local cafes. I'd kind of linger and see if Simon, who was working at Weta, see if he wanted to pay for it this time. And like, it was really like that. And then I was editing it myself. We didn't really have any lights. I think like Simon had one LED, like battery powered light. And we used the fairy lights in the house, and then we just used the sun. And when it came to post-production, we could color grade it all ourselves. And Simon has a visual effects background. He does that for Weta. So the whole storm and the end sequence, that's all effects. He shot elements and composited it all. And then sound was the real big one. So we went to an amazing local post-production facility called Underground Sound. And there's a guy there, Phil, who has been a friend of ours for ages. And so we pleaded with him, like, would you do like an entire post pass on this film, like sound design and, a 5.1 mix and, splitting all the tracks so we can deliver stems to, a sales agent and all these things that we didn't know what we were doing. And we can't pay you anything. So maybe we can come up with an agreement, like the first, because everyone owns a percentage of the film. The contracts that I got the actors to sign was like, you have 2% of any revenue that comes to the film, and you have 4% because you've been on for, more than a day. And there was all those kinds of agreements for everybody that worked on the film. And so the real budget was probably like $500-600. It was just lunches and a leather jacket. And, like the locket that's in the film, we bought that from Amazon for like $1.50. It was really like, we were really having a penny pinch because of my financial situation at the time. Yeah.
That is really impressive. I mean, it looks great and it sounds great.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, because, there are a lot of movies that they look like they cost about $500 to make, and your movie doesn't look like that. So
that's so great to hear. I'm so great.
But my other question is, what are you working on now? What types of projects?
So we finished a film that came out last year. I think it's on Amazon Prime at the moment. It's called Dead, and that was a buddy murder mystery with ghosts.
Okay.
It's really strange. It's much stranger than this film. So David, you'll have to check it out. And
It's called D.
DEAD. So also dead.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Kiwi accent.
Cool.
But yeah, that's really fun. It's like it's about a stoner who can see ghosts. He helps a dead police officer solve a murder. Yeah. And then at the moment, like I've been working as an assistant editor on a Netflix film that's been shot here just to earn money. And you know, at the moment it's like we're stuck at home, we can't work, we can't do anything. But we've had scripts floating around for a couple of years, and I'm always trying to develop them and put them out there. And I don't think I can ask any more favors of people to work for free. I think those days are done. So I don't really know what the next step of the process is about how to get a film or a TV show up, because to be honest, like I am not really the voice that the world needs at the moment. There's like a lot of underrepresented voices that should be pushed to the forefront. So for the last couple of years, I've just been kind of happy to chill and support where I can. Like I've done a little bit of kind of like mentoring and helping younger filmmakers and things like that. But yeah, I mean, there's that scripts floating around. I'd love to make something else at some point, but it's hard to come up with the money now, I think, especially with the world and this amount of tumult. I don't know how excited people are to throw down a couple of $1 million on a straight white man in New Zealand, one of the most privileged places in the world, and a privileged perspective. I just don't know how helpful it would be.
Well, I was going to say, David, I have a recommendation for another Oddball film. This is a movie that I actually was involved in making about 10 years ago in the DC area. It's called Ultrasonic.
Don't know it.
We actually had a decent sized budget for like a first time filmmaker. His name is Ro Rao. And I think about, it came to mind because we were talking about just like how you were shooting, you know, in the cafe, and it was just hectic. And so we shot a couple of scenes on the metro without permission, because typically you have to get like permits. And so it was totally guerrilla shooting. They just shot and they just were looking, you had lookouts to make sure that nobody, but it looked great. So there's definitely something to be said about guerrilla shooting. I mean, it's definitely what you have to do, you know, when you're starting out and you don't have much of a budget. So
I will check out that title.
No, and you mentioned, you know, working with Peter Jackson, and my sister is also a filmmaker, and she credits the Lord of the Rings trilogy with making her want to become a filmmaker. And so I think it's really great that even though, you know, no one is ever going to want Americans to come into their country again at this rate, or, you know, just the lockdowns and the unpredictability of COVID, you know, it's great that like films like this can kind of, you know, bridge those distances, and we can a different place and go, you know, without having to leave our homes. So
I think we are like really hungry to have Americans in New Zealand. We've got an amazing tax rebate that we offer productions to film here because we really want people to come and film. So they shot like I think Netflix have done 19 films here this year, I think, or 19, you know, like it's absolutely amazing. So no, I think we make you pay like $3,000 or something, and then you have to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then you're allowed out.
Okay.
So it's like it can happen. It's just hard. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. So book the tickets. Come on over. We're ready.
Great. Any other questions or anything? Let me put in the link for next month's program. Next month we'll be watching Ultraverse. So we'll be here for Thursday, September 23rd. Same time, same bat channel. And for our general list of events, I'll include them here in the chat as well. Thank you, Hayden, for joining us tonight. Thank you, David, for doing all the work of putting these events together. And
yes, thank you, Hayden. It was great to see you, and I loved hearing from you.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you.
I haven't been able to talk about love and time travel for a while, so it's brought back a lot of happy feelings.
thank you. Good night, everyone. Or
Night.
Good night.
good evening, or
Good afternoon.
Good day.
Yeah,
Have a nice lunch, Hayden. Yes.
yeah. Thanks, guys. Cool. All the best. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.